Hey, what's up? My name's Chris. Welcome to today's video. I'm going to be sharing with you some recent blood test results that I had done at a physical a few months back in November 2024, right around the time where I've been vegan for 6 years. First went vegan back in late 2018. So we're just going to get a picture into how my health is doing. I did a similar video to this at the 4-year mark and the 5-year mark. So I kind of plan on doing these every year just to show people a picture into how my health is. A lot of people don't know if you can be healthy on a vegan plant-based diet. So this is just kind of my anecdotal data, just N of 1, showing how my health is doing. We're gonna see if I'm sickly, malnourished, if I'm on the verge of death, like a lot of anti-vegans will say online. And this year I actually asked my doctor for some new tests. So we have new results looking at like micronutrient status and vitamin status. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first test we're going to look into is the comprehensive metabolic panel. I've got the data down here, so I'm going to start reading off the numbers. Starting off here with sodium, potassium, chloride, CO2, anion gap, glucose, fasting glucose, blood urea nitrogen, all in normal range. As you can see, within that green band in the middle is kind of the normal spectrum for the test. Moving on to creatinine, albumin, total protein were in normal range. Bilirubin was elevated. As you can see, it's in the yellow range, which is not alarming, as we'll get to. My doctor wrote a letter at the end of the test to kind of go over my results, and usually that's just attributed to the fact that I was fasted. So usually if you're doing a fasted blood test, your bilirubin is normal to be elevated for that reason. Then we have alkaline phosphatase, aspartate aminotransferase, alanine aminotransferase, all in normal range, as you can see. And lastly, you've got calcium, also in normal range. So comprehensive metabolic panel, as you can see, everything looked normal, so that's good. So next test here, we're gonna look at lipid panel. So going into my total cholesterol, it's at 105 milligrams per deciliter. Triglycerides was at 63, HDL cholesterol at 47, and LDL cholesterol is at 44. So all in all, these numbers are great. They actually dropped a little bit from last year, and in general, especially with LDL, you want to make sure that's low. Obviously not too low, but low as possible within reason to reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease, things like heart disease, stroke. So I'm glad to see that these numbers are trending well and actually down a little bit from last year. So these are really good cholesterol numbers if you're looking at it from a national guidelines perspective. So the next thing I asked my doctor for was to see how my vitamin D is looking, and here's the result for that. Vitamin D 25 hydroxy showing 45 nanograms per milliliter, which is right there in the normal range. I take 2,000 IUs of vitamin D every day because sometimes I don't get enough sun. And in general, it's just a good idea to supplement vitamin D if you're not getting enough active sunlight. It's a really important vitamin to have. So I'm glad to see that's in a normal range. The next test here is ferritin. Ferritin is an important protein that regulates iron function in the body, and the number here is 35 nanograms per milliliter, which is in the normal range. However, it's on the lower end of the range. The thing is, my doctor had nothing to comment on this when he was writing the letter about my results, and it's also not presenting any symptomology. So I don't have any fatigue, I don't have any anemia symptoms, I don't have any issues with recovering in the gym or building muscle. So because I don't have those symptoms, it's not necessarily like, oh, if your number is lower, that's bad. There's no issues going on, so it's fine that it's kind of on the lower end for that. So the next test here is looking at iron and a few relevant metrics related to that. First up, we've got iron at 140 micrograms per deciliter, which is clearly in the standard normal range. Transferrin, total iron binding capacity, and transferrin saturation were all within normal range. So everything's looking good there. So next up, we've got vitamin B12. The number was at 1347 picograms per milliliter. And as you can see, it's actually on the higher end of the spectrum, out of the normal range. And my doctor talked about this a little in the letter. We'll get to it later. So the next test here is folate. The number was at 10.9 nanograms per milliliter, which is in the normal range, so that's good. So next up here we have zinc. This is a specific nutrient that I asked for a result, and we've got 86 micrograms per deciliter, which is in the normal range, so that's good too. So next up here we got the complete blood count results. My white blood cells, red blood cells, hemoglobin, hematocrit, mean corpuscular volume, mean corpuscular hemoglobin were all within normal range. The only thing that was elevated was mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration, which was at 36, and the upper limit is 35. However, my doctor had nothing to say about this in the letter, as we'll get to, so it doesn't alarm me. Next, we have red cell distribution width, which is also out of range a little bit on the lower end. However, my doctor had nothing to say on this in the letter. Next, we have platelet count, mean platelet volume, neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils. All those values were within normal range. And then basophils was at 0, so I guess that wasn't detected. So the next test here is testosterone. I was definitely looking forward to seeing how my results look this year compared to last year. And we got a total testosterone level of 426 nanograms per deciliter. So that is a 30 nanogram per deciliter drop relative to last year. And that can be explained by like many factors. It's hard to pinpoint what that is. Maybe I didn't sleep well enough in the weeks leading up to the test. However, I don't have more data. Last year I had my free testosterone, which is definitely more important than the total testosterone. So this year, unfortunately, I don't have that data. So it's hard to contextualize what this number is because it doesn't show the full picture. Because, you know, free testosterone matters more. If you have a lot of that, it means there's more testosterone that's able to have androgenic effects in the body. Last year, my free test was really high, and this year, for some reason, didn't get that data. So lastly, we're gonna go into a letter that my doctor wrote, an overview of my results, and he wrote, "My complete blood count was normal without evidence of anemia or infection. The results of your complete metabolic panel are normal. Your blood sugar, glucose, calcium, albumin, protein, liver function, alkaline phosphatase, ALT, AST, electrolytes, and kidney function are all normal. The results of your recent fasting lipid panel are normal. I suggest repeating this again at a fasting physical exam in 12 months. And here he says your vitamin B12 level is high. Though this is not of harm to be elevated, you can consider reducing your oral dose. And I specifically know why my B12 was elevated for this test. I had the test done on Friday, and every Thursday I take a 2,500 microgram sublingual dose of B12 in the form of cyanocobalamin. So it's a day after I take a large weekly dose of B12. So that's why my result was elevated. But let's say I had the test done 4 days, 5 days, 6 days after I had taken that dose, I'm sure it would have been in a normal range. So I'm not alarmed by that whatsoever. There's different ways you can supplement B12. Some people do it daily. I choose to just take a bigger dose once a week. You know, there's different ways you can take it if you look up a chart on veganhealth.org. So that's what I decided, and that's why my result was high. Then he goes on to say your folate, iron panel, and vitamin D levels are normal. Your testosterone level is normal. And at the time, the zinc data wasn't there, so he said it's pending. Then he says, I recommend a COVID vaccine, booster, and flu vaccine. You appear in good health. Please let me know if you have any questions. Stay well. And then he said my zinc level was normal when the result came in later. So yeah, that's all the blood test results for this year. I'm really happy to see that I'm healthy and that I'm in good shape. And it's honestly of no surprise to me because I sleep well, I eat well, I exercise 5 days a week, I manage my stress, and all in all, I'm just a good example of how you can be healthy on a vegan plant-based diet if you plan it properly and you take care of the essentials in your lifestyle. Now, I do want to mention that I'm not vegan because I see it as a diet or a lifestyle or something that's good for my health. I'm vegan first and foremost because I oppose the exploitation of animals fundamentally on an ethical level. So that principle kind of informs my behaviors, where I do not consume animal flesh or anything that comes from animals' bodies. And obviously I don't wear leather, fur, buy products tested on animals, go to circuses and zoos and all that. So all of that stems from the mindset that I have, which, you know, affects how I eat. And I eat a healthy plant-based diet. Well, there are versions of a plant-based diet that are less healthy. For example, potato chips and Oreos are technically vegan, but they're not healthy. So with my diet, I try to eat whole food, plant-based, avoiding junk food. You're just kind of having it here and there as a treat. I eat a lot of potatoes, rice, legumes. You know, I spice my food up, and I eat vegetables, dark leafy greens often. I eat peanut butter often, bagels sometimes. So just simple, basic foods that everyone kind of eats already anyway. So yeah, guys, that brings me to the end of this video. I appreciate you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below and I will get to you. And until next time, take care.